We're all quite familiar with how to convert lengths, and we've probably been doing that since primary school. So, for example, if you had 17 meters and you wanted to convert it to centimeters, what you would do is you would do the conversion 17 and you'd think to yourself, how many centimeters are there inside a meter? And you'd remember maybe a meter rule that you've seen, and there's 100 centimeters there. And you'd realize that in order to get meters to centimeters, you need to say, well, how many's in one, and then multiply by that. So for 17 meters converting to centimeters, we would multiply by 100, which means we're essentially adding 2 zeros. What's going to happen now is we're going to be converting areas, and then we're going to convert volume as well. What I'm going to suggest here is that there are more conversions you can learn off by heart, and many textbooks have got them. What I'm suggesting, however, is that we learn one method. If I want to do a conversion, here for the length, my conversion was times by 100, and I'm going to add in an exponent of 1. For length, we times by 100 just the once. For area, I'm going to times by 100 twice, and that does not mean that I'm going to times by 200. It means that I'm going to times by 100 and then times by another 100. Pick up your calculator and do this with me. We're going to take 17 times 100 to the power of 2, and you can see there what happens is now instead of adding 2 zeros, we add 4. When it comes to volumes, it's going to be the same, excepting now I'm going to take cubed measures and I'm going to multiply by 100 to the power of 3. So you can go back to your calculator and you can change your 2 into a 3, and you'll see that this time we add 6 zeros. You'll notice I'm leaving units out. We only really need to put the answers in at the end. This will be 2 centimeters squared, and this one will be 2 centimeters cubed. Let's do some examples. Bearing in mind the principle is, do the normal conversion that you know when it is length, do the conversion to the power of 2 when it is area, and do the conversion to the power of 3 when it's volume. The first one, we're going to do a straightforward length calculation. We're going to say meters into centimeters. So we're going to do the conversion once. And we're going to get 500 centimeters. Now I'm going to take the same number and I'm going to say we are now converting square units. We're converting from meters squared to centimeters squared. So I'm going to take the 5 and I'm going to multiply by 100 squared. And that's going to give me 5 with 4 zeros instead of just adding on 2. My unit answer will be centimeters squared. The next one is a volume conversion. And here I'm going to take 5 and I'm going to multiply by 100 to the power of 3. So I'm essentially adding 6 zeros. So it's going to be 5 million units, centimeters cubed. You'll notice that it gets incredibly big when we are converting from a big unit to a smaller unit and the units are squared. So there it's very big, here it gets even bigger. I'm now going to convert a huge number, 3 million square millimeters. Can you picture how tiny those are? But there's 3 million of them, right? And now I want to convert to meters squared. So I'm going to say to myself, what would the conversion normally be if I was going to convert ordinary millimeters to ordinary meters? Normally, if I was going millimeters to meters, I would normally divide by 1,000. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 3 million and I am going to divide by 1,000. We're converting square units, so it's divide by 1,000 to the power of 2. And that's going to give me 3. Unit will be meters squared. Let's take the same number, but let's now convert the volumes. Okay, so I got from 3 million down to 3, because of course 1,000 squared is 1,000,000, right? So now I'm going to take my 3 million and I am going to divide by the normal conversion if it was length, but I'm going to do it 3 times. And now I'm going to get quite a small answer. I actually get 3 thousandths, 3 over 1,000, or 0,003 meters cubed. The next kind of conversion we're going to look at is the ways in which we can convert capacities. So what we've been doing now is we've been looking at volumes in cubic units, but you'll remember that we can also talk about volumes in terms of liters or milliliters. And what we can also do is quite a few conversions. Now you've got 2 options. You can learn a whole lot of different conversions and learn a conversion table off by heart, or you can learn only one thing, and this is what I'm recommending. If you can imagine a little block of sugar, they normally have these at fancy tea gardens, or perhaps your grandparents have given you one before. It's approximately 1 cubic centimeters worth of sugar. And then I'd like you to picture one of those little measuring spoons. They often come in little packs. We've got them all together. And that would be 1 milliliters worth of salt. And I want you to remember that my block of sugar and my tiny spoon of salt have got the same volume, the same capacity. If I broke up all that sugar in my cubic centimeter, I'd have 1 milliliter of sugar, and it would fit inside my 1 milliliter measuring spoon. If you can hold on to that thought, you'll be able to do any conversion between cubic units and capacity in terms of liters and milliliters and so on. All right, so let's have a go. First one's going to be really straightforward. Milliliters is the same as cubic centimeters. That was the thing we need you to hold on to at this point. So if I'm going to convert from milliliters to cubic centimeters, it's a straight conversion. They're completely equal to each other. 1 cubic centimeter equals 1 milliliter. And so therefore, 40 milliliters equals 40 cubic centimeters. And that's all we need to be able to remember is this thing here. Now I want to convert liters to cubic centimeters. So I need to do more than one conversion, but luckily the number of conversions you'd have to do are mostly really familiar. It's just this little one that's new. Okay, so 40 liters, well, I want to get it into centimeters cubed, or I want to get it into milliliters, and then these guys I can just cross between them really easily. So 40 liters is not exactly what I want. I want 40 liters rather in milliliters. So I'm going to times by 1,000, and I'm going to get 40,000 milliliters, and I'm writing the units all the time. So now what I need to do is convert my milliliters to cubic centimeters, but those were exactly the same. So actually I'm done. It's just going to be 40,000 cubic centimeters. Now I'm going to convert cubic meters, which we haven't dealt with yet, into liters. And there is a direct conversion there, but I'm not going to suggest you do that. I'm going to suggest that we rather convert to cubic centimeters, which means that we need to do the normal conversion 3 times. So what would we normally do to get meters to centimeters? We would times by 100. So what we're going to do now is we are going to times by 100 3 times. This will give me 123,000 cubic centimeters. And then I remember that, of course, that is exactly the same for milliliters. So that's still 123,000 milliliters. And then what I'd like to do is to get that into liters. So I'm going to say 123,000 milliliters divide by 1,000, and that will give me 123 liters. And for the last one, we're going to convert cubic millimeters to kiloliters. So again, I want to get everything into centimeters cubed or into milliliters, depending on which way I'm going to do my conversion. Here, I've got millimeters cubed, so I'm first going to convert those into centimeters cubed. So I've got 16 million. I would normally go from millimeters to centimeters by dividing by 10. So now I'm going to divide by 10, but because it's volume, I'm going to do it 3 times. That is going to give me 16,000 centimeters cubed, which of course gives me immediately 16,000 milliliters. And now I'm going to convert from milliliters to kiloliters. Again, I could use a conversion that is straight from milliliters to kiloliters, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go via liters. I'm going to say 16,000 milliliters divide by 1,000 gives me 16 liters. And then I'm going to take 16 liters and divide by 1,000 again, and that's going to give me 0,016 kiloliters.